Everyone, it is 8:30. I'll call today's Board of Commissioners meeting to order, looking for an approval of the agenda. We do have one agenda addition, would be the annual department update from our Human Resources Director, Darren Brook. And the deletion would be the annual update from Solid Waste. Today, we'll flip-flop those, so if you don't mind, I'll insert the HR update where the solid waste would have been.
Move approval with corrections.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Campbell to approve the agenda with the addition and the deletion, a second by Commissioner Cayley. Are there any further discussions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Now we'll move into our employee recognitions. Unless you guys all want to stay for the whole meeting, we can move that to the end. Okay, so our first employee recognition this morning is Tina Hansen. Tina, do you want to come up? Good morning, Tina. Today, this plaque is given to you in grateful recognition for your 15 years of service to Clay County and its citizens. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
And yes, Rhonda?
Yes, I'll say, make a few comments on behalf of Sandy Hansen, who wasn't able to be here this morning. Tina is our child support officer. She focuses a lot on modifications, which is really important that if we don't have the right court order for child support payments, we are unable to collect. So she focuses on that so we can make sure that we collect the right amount for our children and families. Tina is always willing to help out. She's actually one of our cheerleaders, not only in the child support unit, but for the agency overall. Sandy tells me you're an amazing baker, so the unit benefits from Tina's baking and baked goods. So we just really appreciate what you do for the agency, Tina, and on behalf of Sandy and myself, thank you.
Thank you. I like baking. Congratulations. Okay. Our next certificate of recognition goes to Sergeant Darren Bredman. Good morning, Darren. Good. Today, Darren, this plaque is given to you for 25 years of service to Clay County and its citizens. Thank you so much for the work that you've done over these years. We're so grateful.
Thank you.
Sheriff Empton.
Thank you. Yes, Darren's been here 25 years. He's been here my entire career. Darren has worked in patrol his entire time here, which is great to have somebody in his position right now as sergeant and the experience that he has. He definitely exemplifies what it is to be a leader out there and treats our public with respect and dignity, which we very much are grateful for. Darren is also one of our field training officers, so it's great to have somebody with that kind of experience as well, training our new people that are coming into this field. He's also a taser instructor, and what else are you? Kind of a jack of all trades within the department. So we truly appreciate the work that you do, Darren. Thanks for your 25 years of service, and we look forward to the next 25 years of service from you. Thank you, Sheriff. If Herb Nelson did it, you can.
Our next item on the agenda is our citizens to be heard portion. Are there any citizens wishing to speak to the commission on anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, Steve, have there been any correspondence online for this portion?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The next item would be our approval of the payment of bills and vouchers.
Move for approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Evinger to approve the bills, a second by Commissioner Gross. Yikes. Any further discussion? Sorry. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Granted. The minutes presented from February 22nd.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gross to approve, a second by Commissioner Evinger. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, granted. Item 2 is the request to reengage our Sentence to Serve program. Janelle Cheney from Probation, good morning.
Morning, Chair. Thank you for having us. I was here before. Sorry, good morning.
Good morning.
I was here in December, I believe, and discussed kind of temporary holding back on the STS crew. Our crew leader was retiring, and due to some complications with COVID-19, being able to get crew members, things like that, we thought it was best to kind of table it for a little bit, get creative. How could we build crew size, those kind of things. And I knew that there was going to be a period of time that we didn't have a crew leader, and thought it was in the county's best interest to kind of table the contract with the Department of Corrections. Recently, Carrie, Joe, and I met and discussed our crew, the STS crew, through the Minnesota Department of Corrections, as well as a little bit about the jail crew. Both of us had amazing crew leaders. They worked very well together, complemented each other. However, both of our crew leaders have since retired, and so we feel it's in our best interest to kind of partner and kind of discuss things as we move forward. What does it look like? How can we, as supervisors, support new crews, crew leaders, what projects may be in the best interest of the county. And so I'm here today to ask that we be able to re-engage the DOC STS crew. The Minnesota Department of Corrections would post that. I think the timeline will work well with the county. We understand that crew size might be limited initially. I think the jail is still, the community is kind of still coming out of COVID-19, but with a new crew leader, I think a small crew size will be beneficial. There'll be mandatory trainings and kind of acclimating to the position, getting to know the township leaders, those kind of things. And so today I'm just asking that we get your blessing to move forward and post that position. I don't know if Joe or Carrie have anything to add into that.
Yeah, I guess we did. We met, was it last week we talked about, just to talk about kind of finding the balance of maybe some scheduled stuff with the county on a weekly basis. Things around the campus definitely could use their help for around summertime around here and other areas off campus. So that new storage facility that we purchased, it's good timing. We're taking that over April 1st fully. And that's where, if this is approved, that's where they would work out of and help maintain that facility. So that works out real well for us. But excited to work with both Janelle and Carrie on this.
Okay. Commissioner Ebinger.
This is good news. We just came back from the annual legislative meeting, and there's legislation right now pending. We are, and as I'm sure everybody up here is familiar with, there's a real effort to try and figure out how to reinvest our system into something that serves both the offenders and the public, and this is perfect on that. We're going to see some pretty dramatic changes, I think, in our probation parole system here in the state. There are 3 different entities now that provide it, and we're trying to figure out how to bring them together, not have them arguing over both finances with each other and within the Department of Corrections, where the prisons actually get the lion's share. So programs like this just serve everybody, and I'm glad to see we're bringing it back, and I think we need to be supportive of this.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. You might know I'm going to ask questions about financing. So in here, it says the cost impact funding sources. There's no additional costs within the contract. So was this something that we had already approved through a previous budget?
Yes, it is. Clay County is in a contract through 2023, or I believe July 2023, because we're on fiscal year. And so what happened was, what you had agreed upon through the budget previously, we tabled that, and so Clay County has not been billed back from January until we fill the position.
Okay. And then so that would have been Mark's crew that, and his crew obviously did things in multiple counties, didn't he?
No, his crew was specific to Clay County.
Oh, okay.
Yep. He may have helped a time or two on a day, like if Becker County had a storm, he may have gone outside of Clay County in an emergency type basis. I don't recall any of that, though.
No, okay, well, and that would make sense if that were the case. I'm sure we would have been reciprocated,
Yes.
those other counties. And then so what we're talking about now is maybe just moving from what were two separate crews to just one? Is that what I'm hearing here?
No, we do hope to have both crews. I don't know where the jail is at with their position, but we would still have, our crew is more specific to those that are released from the jail to go on crew, and then we also have some community members that meet up with the crew, so it's a blend of community members as well as those that are authorized, court order approved, and authorized by the jail staff to go on a crew out in the community. So they're lower risk to be within the community and work on projects. And then I believe Carrie can probably speak better to the difference with the jail crew. They have an officer with them, and I think technically they're still considered in custody.
Yep.
So they would be two different, and we do hope to have both crews moving forward, but as Monty and Mark had worked together well, we hope to continue that. I know at times the jail has needs, and so that crew hasn't been able to get out, and Monty would connect with Mark and meet the needs within the community, and so we hope that continues.
Just going back on Commissioner Ebinger's comments, so Carrie, the folks that come out of the jail that go into that work, that's part of their ability to work off maybe some community service too? Is that part of it, or?
No, work detail is just a situation where if they're serving, they work 10 days and they would get in lieu of some time off their sentence.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. But, well, I agree with Commissioner Ebinger. I think this is something we need to move forward with, so.
I'll also agree. I have had substantial conversations with community members about the value of these crews, not only for those that are working and possibly, taking some time off sentences or fines and fees, but certainly the Moorhead hockey youth, the rink, the cleaning that happens there, the Clay County Fairgrounds. I know that Hewlin and Felton and all of those smaller towns use these crews to help prepare for their summer festivals. I do think that COVID threw a major wrench in operations, and I think we made it work. I really hope going forward that our cost per wear, if for lack of a better term, cost per use maybe on these is able to increase. I hope that you're able to collaborate with the jail to make sure that we're not just having a work leader go out and do the work because there are no workers available. I think that I appreciate the three of you had conversation and how to best utilize these crews. Certainly, Carrie, when the jail's at the position where you're wanting to advertise that, I would like to have conversations with Steve on making sure that is utilized to the best capacity. It's hard to see, two employees that don't have full crews to go out. But certainly the benefit to our community outweighs that, and those are minor details we can work out. Further discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd move we reengage the STS program.
Yeah, we have a motion by Commissioner Campbell to re-engage the contract. A second by Commissioner Ebinger. I didn't hear him, sorry. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The request is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 on our agenda this morning is a request for an administrative law judge services. We have Attorney Chris McShane here from Onstead Twitchell. Good morning.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Chris McShane. I am from Onstead Twitchell. I work closely with the various diversion-related entities for property acquisition, and that includes the Moorhead-Clay County JPA. Chairman and Commissioner Campbell are familiar with me, and unfortunately, you guys have seen me once or twice as well, as Clay County is the condemning authority, if necessary, to acquire property rights for the comprehensive project. We have this morning a request to engage the Office of Administrative Hearings, and that engagement of the Office of Administrative Hearings is for an appeal of a relocation assistance determination that was made by the Moorhead-Clay County JPA. So the MCC JPA retains land agents and relocation experts to assist people who have to be displaced from their homes as a result of the comprehensive project. The MCC JPA has then what happens is the land agents and relocation experts come up with a calculation for an estimated relocation housing differential payment, which is to say that we have appraised your house, but you're unlikely to get into a comparable dwelling for the appraised price. And it's usually not too far off from the appraised amount, but there are certain circumstances with respect to location or functionality of that property that make it less likely that you'd be able to replace that. So they come up with a calculation that says your appraised value is X. It is going to cost you X plus some number to get into a comparable home, and that some number is the relocation housing differential payment. The MCC JPA has been approving these calculations for a year or more. And last fall, the MCC JPA put in place a relocation appeal policy, which said if you as a displaced landowner don't like the calculation, here's the process that you follow to challenge that. And that appeal process tracks both the Minnesota Relocation Act and then also the Federal Relocation Act. So it combines the two together because we're following both the Minnesota law and the federal law and trying to provide as much benefit to these landowners as possible. So under Minnesota statutes, the first step in a challenge to a relocation benefit is for the landowner to say that I don't agree. And then if the landowner says I don't agree, then the acquiring agency needs to then engage the Office of Administrative Hearings, which is an administrative law judge, and begin a contested case to determine the appropriate benefit under the Relocation Act. Acquiring agency is defined by the statutes as an entity that has condemnation authority. So MCC JPA is a group that was formed between Clay County and Moorhead. Both Clay County and Moorhead have eminent domain authority, but the formation of that joint entity, the joint entity does not have that eminent domain authority because the statutes in Minnesota don't allow for assigning eminent domain authority in accordance with the JPA. There are 4 landowners that have received their relocation housing differential payment calculation that don't agree with it. And those 4 landowners have now sent an appeal in accordance with the MCC JPA appeal process. They sent that to Mr. Larson, who is the secretary of the MCC JPA. It now is a situation where we have to engage that Office of Administrative Hearings. The 4 properties that are at issue here are the Keith Craigrude and Norma Craigrude property, which is identified as OIN 1252, Bradley Booth and Wendy Tabor Booth, which is OIN 1635, David Dobis and Morgan Booth, OIN 1665, Andrew Leach and Lisa Leach, OIN 8528. And when I say OIN, for those of you that aren't involved in the Moorhead-Clay County JPA, that's a four-digit number that we can use to identify these properties instead of a full-on legal description or an address, because many of the properties are agricultural and they don't have an address, or even the tax ID number, which gets to be long and cumbersome, and it also it's different in each county as to how many numbers that might be. So to make it easier to track all that, we used OIN. It's just an ID number. So with that, all four of these properties are rural, and they're not within the city of Moorhead, and it would be expected that if eminent domain is necessary, which we hope it's not, but if it is, that MCC JPA would likely make a request to Clay County to move forward with using its eminent domain authority to acquire that property. As Clay County would likely be the condemning authority if it is necessary, then we're coming to you guys to begin that contested case process, because that's what the definition of acquiring agency is. Do you guys have any questions as to what this process is for calculating relocation housing differential or initiating an appeal process?
I think there are some comments. For the public watching, want folks to know that these regulating boards really thought long and hard about making sure there was an avenue for residents and landowners to have an appeals process. We really wanted it. There may be cases where we do make mistakes on that. So I think it is important to have some sort of avenue to evaluate that. Granted, it might go the other way as well, but I know that we spent several meetings making sure that we had avenues like this ready if needed. It's unfortunate that that's how it has to happen sometimes, and unfortunately that's where we're at. But did one of you raise your hands? Commissioner Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. Chris, first off, the housing differential payment, when that's determined, that is something that they can use up to that amount, correct?
That is correct.
So in some instances, they might be able to find something more comparable to their value without needing the full housing differential payment.
Right, Commissioner Campbell, that's a good point where this is a maximum benefit, and it's called a use it to lose it benefit, which would mean that for a homeowner that has a large home and their family has grown or has grown up and now they no longer need such a large home or a considerable amount of acreage or anything like that, they can move elsewhere. And if they do, if they downsize, if they move into an apartment, if they move to an area where housing is less expensive, and they don't use that full amount of the relocation housing differential calculation, then, if, as an example, if their appraisal is $300,000 and the RHDP is $50,000, if they buy a house that's $325,000, then they would only get $25,000 of benefit.
And so this is separate of an agreed upon appraisal price on the actual property, correct?
That is correct.
So in this particular case, the landowners that you spoke of have agreed to the actual purchase price of the property?
In all four of these cases,
Or is it still part of the?
It's still being debated or negotiated. So in all four of these cases, the landowner disagrees with the method used to calculate that RHDP. The RHDP calculations were based upon finding comparable dwellings, but the comparable dwellings that were used cover a large geographic area, some of which include urban residential properties. And when we say a comparable dwelling, the federal act, which is mirrored by the state act, the federal act talks differently about a dwelling, which is just the building that you live within and the property as a whole. So what the relocation specialists have done is they find a comparable dwelling, which is, you know, size and number of bathrooms and functionality of that dwelling. You know, if it needs to be handicapped, accessible, or things like that would relate to the functionality of that home. They find a functionally comparable dwelling, and then if there's a difference, like in size of lot, or if there's an outbuilding, or if there's something like that the comparable dwelling does not have, or the most comparable dwelling does not have, then they make an adjustment for that. And that adjustment would increase, because if you've used a house in South Moorhead that doesn't have an outbuilding, and you're using that as a comparable dwelling for a property that is rural and has an outbuilding, there would be it's called a carve-out. That's a term that's used by the Federal Relocation Act. There would be a carve-out that would then increase the amount of the relocation housing differential payment. What all four of these landowners, who are all represented by the same attorneys, all four of these landowners instead want to want the calculation based upon what it would cost to buy land, and also to build an identical or functionally equivalent house and outbuilding, landscaping, all of those types of things. And that's not a process or a calculation that has been used by this project for those rural properties that are being displaced by the upstream mitigation area. Now, going back to what Commissioner Campbell and Chairman Monjo said, the hope would be that we don't have to go to an eminent domain action. I've talked to their attorney for all four of these people, and the goal with this RHDP appeal is that we'll figure out the total amount of money that these people will have available to them to relocate wherever they want to go. And one of the misconceptions that's out there is that if we use an RHDP calculation and pick a comparable dwelling that is in South Moorhead, that's not saying that these people are required to move to that comparable house. The exact opposite is true. If they want to move to that house, great. If they want to move to the lake, great. If they want to move to Arizona, great. If they want to build their own house, great. What we're doing with that RHDP is we're setting the maximum amount of compensation that they can get for wherever it is that they relocate.
What they're contesting right now is that housing differential payment value. So if that goes to an administrative law judge, and that is settled, and when that decision is decided, what does that do to the original appraisal then? Does that satisfy all of it then? Or can you end up back in court then trying to reestablish the appraised value?
Yes, so we could end up back in court regarding, or back in negotiations and ultimately possibly lead to court regarding the appraised amount. So the just, or the fair market value of the property that's being acquired. What this RHDP appeal is, what the goal of that is, that if you take the appraised amount plus the RHDP, you get the maximum amount that these people will have available to them to relocate. And that's what they're asking for at this point is, I live here, I need to go live somewhere else. What is the total amount that I have available to me to relocate to wherever that is that I'm going? Whether that's building a new house, whether that's moving into Moorhead, whether that's moving to the lake, whether it's moving to Arizona. What is that maximum amount that's available to them? And that's important to them from the perspective of they don't want to go buy a new house and not know if the cost of that's going to be covered. So they want that established before they then go buy a replacement house. And the timing of this is good from the perspective of these people are not being displaced in the near term. We expect the appeal process to be completed before they have to be displaced. so they'll know that maximum amount with enough time to actually relocate.
And just one last thing, and I do want to agree with Commissioner Mojo too regarding the, the time and effort that MCC JPA has taken to make sure that all of our landowners are treated fairly and we come up with an appropriate compensation to them, but also respecting the taxpayer who's paying that bill. So the request today to hire an administrative law judge just for these 4, or is it for the process in general moving forward?
These would be on an individual basis. Each time that there is a contested or appealed RHDP calculation, we would have to then engage the Office of Administrative Hearings. The Office of Administrative Hearings then engages an administrative law judge, and that administrative law judge is for the particular one that is being appealed. So this is just for these 4. The request would be a motion, if the Commission is so inclined, a motion to initiate that contested case hearing through the Office of Administrative Hearings. And then the other component of that is to engage Onstead Twitchell to represent the county through that contested case process.
Any further questions, comments? Board wishes.
Madam Chair, I would move that we request the service of
Office of Administrative Hearings?
Office of Administrative Hearings, and to establish Onstead Twitchell as the counsel for the county on behalf of the Diversion Authority.
That is correct, yes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Campbell, a second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further questions?
Is that timeline right on there, 2/8/22, or should that be 3/8/22, or?
We're going to do this as soon as we can. So the engagement of the Office of Administrative Hearings would be today, which is the 8th. So I'm assuming that we just transposed.
Let's just see
March,
the
February.
implementation timeline is 2/8.
Right, and
To 3-8.
yep.
Okay. Effective today. Any further questions or comments?
And I think,
Commissioner Campbell.
just for a point of clarification too, or just in case somebody wonders, so the legal funds that are needed for this, they do come out of the Diversion Authority. Just
Yep, this will be billed through the MCC JPA, which gets
Then-
funding
then bills that
for the
to,
project as a whole.
Further discussion? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The request is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our 4th item this morning would be our annual update from our Human Resources Department, our Human Resources Director, Darren Brook. Good morning.
All right, thank you for having me. I am not Kirk Rosenberger, just for the audience's knowledge. But I am stealing his department head time slot. Good morning, I'm Darren Brook. I'm the HR Director and Assistant County Administrator for Clay County. What I did was hand out a little cheat sheet for everything that is going on within Clay County and some stats that we've had. These are 2021 stats. Right now, I have 4 people in my department. Myself, Anna Moore is our HR coordinator. She does a lot of our benefit stuff. She's been here for 2 years. I just went over 11 years in January. Melissa Young is our HR generalist. She's been here for 14 and a half years. She was down in I believe the recorder's office first, and then came up to HR probably about 9 or 10 years ago, I think. And then Kathy Eiley, she is our admin. We share that position with solid waste. She's a 50-50, so we pay for a 0.5. She's my 0.5. Some of the HR functions that we do, personnel management and employee relations, input payroll data. So every payroll we have to, Anna and Melissa do a lot of the input for payroll. Benefit management, everything and anything that has to do with benefits is what Anna accomplishes. Workers' compensation workers' compensation claims and FMLA. That one in particular has been really a lot more this year and last year due to COVID. So we've had a lot more workers' comp claims than we have in the past years. Also labor negotiations, which I'll talk a little bit about when I get up to the unions block there. I start off the annual county HR personnel budget process. Probably will start that first part of April. That kind of kicks off the whole budget season. We are also involved with the safety committee, the employee appreciation committee. We don't really meet that much anymore, but we still kind of get together. As an example of that was last summer's picnic, so that all of the department heads contributed to that because we didn't get all of the money couldn't use the money in our EAC fund. But the department heads all stepped up and contributed to make that a really great picnic. Had a great day for that. We also are involved with the insurance committee and the wellness committees. A lot of the staffing and advertising, Melissa Young does a lot of that. Employee evaluations, every employee gets an evaluation once a year, so we track those and kind of remind everybody. This year we did have to go to a new form, which I created online. It seems to be working fine. Before we had HR 360, but that went away when Lakes Co-op, when we went away from Lakes Co-op for our insurance benefits. And then, of course, the assistant county administrator duties. Those consist of anything that Steve tells me to do. So, a few stats. We have, when I ran this.
May I interrupt you for a second? Commissioner Gross has a
I had a
comment.
question. You say workers' compensation claims increased because of COVID. How does that affect?
Yeah. It's kind of been a back and forth thing. If somebody got COVID while they were, and they could prove that it was received while working, on duty hours or working. So for instance, a lot of the public health nurses, the deputies, those type of, they considered that as work-related, and it could be a work comp claim, but there's a process that they have to go through. Basically, if somebody has COVID and says that they got it at work, maybe at the correctional facility, maybe at the juvenile detention center, deputies, those type of positions, then what we do is we submit that to work comp at MCIT, and then they make the judgment call by calling that person and asking them a bunch of questions of, could you have gotten it at home or at a party, or where else did you go? And so they go through this evaluation process with the person, and then if they determine that yes, it was very likely that you got COVID from, let's say a correctional officer got it from a prisoner that was brought in and they had COVID, or in juvenile detention, those type of things, then work comp would come back and they would be eligible for work comp payments. That's not everybody got it. Everybody that got COVID did not get work comp payments, but there were some that we had that MCIT had determined that more than likely they got COVID by doing their work duties. So I hope that explains it.
Good.
Okay. We average about, when I ran this report back, probably end of January, middle of January, we had about 615 employees in Clay County. That fluctuates pretty much daily, probably between anywhere from 612 to 620, depending on who we're in processing. 452 full-time, and our 144 variable hours. So we do have a large portion of our workforce that are variable hour employees. 251 men and 364 women. 286 are married and 329 are single. 371 people live in Minnesota, and 241 live in North Dakota. And the three others, they most likely are students where claim another state, but I wasn't going to write all that down. In 2021, we hired 186 people and had 161 separations. And as you can see, the age of the workforce right there, pretty spread out. If you go back up to the unions, and I've discussed this before, is that all of our unions' contracts end this year. So I actually have a meeting on Friday with Josh Hagum, our labor contract attorney, and we're going to kind of get together and kind of map out a path forward on how we're going to tackle this year. I'm sure that we'll be coming to the board as a closed session to also kind of get your input on where we want to go for the next couple years with our unions. Work comp cases recorded this year was 93. We had 90 citizens' concerns forms this in 2021. I think that still is a great system. People can go right online and click, and then that concern will go directly to the department that can handle that concern. And I've seen that most of these concerns are handled within 24 hours. You know, and it can be everything from highway department, you know, road issues or social services issues, that type of thing. So I think it really gives the citizens a pretty direct line to our department heads, and it seems to be working pretty good. COVID-19 sick leave, in 2020 and 2021, we processed 274, and that was during the paid COVID sick leave when we first started in 2021. And then we've had a total of 109 after April of 21, and those would be the normal sick and vacation that people would have to take. It wasn't paid through CARES or ARPA funds. We've processed 948 applications this year. We have 469 benefit eligible employees, 317 single plans that are grandfathered, 80 that are single new, and 72 family plans. And just for comparison, last year in 2020, we had 51 family plans. So we are getting more family plans, which was kind of the goal we had set out for as well. Last chart on this page is the employees increase that we have. We kind of sees that in the last 4 years or so, we've really increased some of the positions that we have in Clay County due to the growth of the county. On the back page, number of employees and years that they've been employed. As you can see, a lot of our employees have been here 1 to 5 or 5 years or less. A large majority of them, so we're getting a lot of new employees, younger employees. In 2021, hires by type, we've hired 77 of the full-timers, and as you can see, we still hire a lot of variable hours each year. Citizen concerns forms, I just broke out by year how many that we have done. Like I said, in 2021, we did 90, and in 2022, so far, we've done 11. Some of the projects that we're working on, one of the biggest projects that we're doing right now is our conversion from Optimum to UKG UltiPro. That is converting our HR payroll system to a new system. It's taking a lot more time than I had anticipated because it's a lot of making sure that whatever we're bringing over from our old system to the new system is compatible, and we're catching and capturing all of that. We usually have probably 3 or 4 meetings a week to go through this. We'll have 2 payrolls that will be running synchronized payrolls, one in Optimum and one in the new system, to make sure that everything is crossing over correctly. And then the project is supposed to be completed the first payroll in April. So that first payroll in April, I'll just make a public announcement that please check your check stubs that first week of April to make sure that everything came over correctly. And I'll be putting out a lot more information on that between now and then. The nice thing about this new UKG program is it will allow us to do online open enrollment. We've been wanting to do that for many, many years. And this system actually has that, so people can just go online and do their open enrollment. We won't have to send out 500 packets to everybody, and with I don't know how many, 5 or 6 pages per packet. So that should be a real delight for Anna. I know she's looking forward to that. That'll be in October of '22. Some of the things that I'm looking at either bringing back or expanding on is our supervisor training. I don't know if you remember, 2 years ago, we were just starting our supervising training. We have a kind of a supervisor academy that we put together with 12 sessions, 1 session per month. And right when we had, after our first meeting that we had with all the new supervisors and the old supervisors in this county, is when COVID hit. So that was kind of put on the shelf, and I'm hoping to get that re-energized this year. New hire orientation, basically the same thing. We want to kind of start up new hire orientation. We still do new hire in processing and everything, but I used to do new hire orientation, which was about a 6-hour class, and what we're probably going to do is try to cut that down a little bit, but at least give all our new employees a little general overview of organizational structure and duties and that type of thing on county government. We're working with NAIS and Steve Smith on researching some Medicare supplement for our retirees. And also, we just found out not too long ago that Further, who manages our VIVA, HSA, and Flex, is not going to be doing that next year. And so I don't have a lot of information on that yet. We just found this out not too long ago. So we'll be bringing that to the insurance committee. NIS is working with vendors to get a RFP going and see what kind of products are out there to switch over from Further to a new product for our VIVA and HSA and Flex for the county. So those are the things that are going on. It's been extremely busy year, as you can imagine. I'll be happy when we actually get back to doing just HR things and not COVID and transitions and all that other fun stuff that we've been doing the last year and a half. So other than that, I am open for questions.
Darren, you were part of a couple large things last year, one of which you have not identified would be your work that you helped contribute to the ARPA committee. You and your department really helped so much with insight and processing through requests on that, so thank you for your presence on that. I think you talked a little bit about these online forums that you created, and I can't underscore enough how valuable those have been, so thank you for that. But also, I know not listed on your sheet is the swift work that you and your department had to do in collaboration with the county board and administration for what the OSHA regulations may have been or would have been. And I know sometimes we like to forget how crazy that time was, but I want to personally thank you. I know that puts you in a position that we were just trying to do the best possible to be compliant. So thank you for that. Those were some hard weeks. They seem like over a year ago, but they really weren't.
they were only 2 months ago, and I've kind of blocked that out of my memory. That's probably why I didn't put it on my sheet.
Some of us have battle scars over that, but thank you.
That was a difficult couple weeks, for sure. And I think everybody pulled together really, really good, and I think we made the best decisions possible at the time.
Commissioner Kaylee.
Yeah, Darren, since I'm newish still, I'm looking just for a little bit more background on your chart for employee increase. There's two pretty big jumps there from 2018 to 19 and then 19 to 20. What was going on in those years?
I think that was part of when the juvenile detention expanded. They went, they added, I don't know how many employees, I can't remember off the top of my head, but that was a big jump in employees during that time. So that probably makes up a lot of the.
And the jail.
And
the jail. Yeah.
Well. Yeah.
And then it says that we have one seasonal employee currently, and then in hires by type on the other side, it lists 10. Is that just because there's only currently one seasonal employee, and then that'll change?
Yep. Seasonals, they come and go with the seasons. That's why they're seasonal. So I know that, and most of those, I think all of those are in the highway department. So when the snow starts flying, they start hiring seasonal, and then in the summertime, they hire some seasonal for mowing ditches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm only laughing because the other thing that Darren has done this year is started making jokes. For an HR director, that is great.
No, that's not true. I always make jokes. You just
I'm
don't
sorry.
get them sometimes.
Commissioner Kaylee.
And then just one more newbie question. The citizen concern forms that you talked about, what are those generally about? Where are those forms? How are they submitted? Can you just give a little overview of that?
Well, what are they generally about? They're about just about everything, from people complaining of mold in their apartments to mailboxes that have been hit by snowplows. I can't even say it's mostly this or mostly that because every single one is different. What they can do is they go to the website, the Clay County website, external, and it has a citizens concern form link there. Once they fill that out and submit it, all of them go to me so I can make sure. And what they do is they have a drop down of which department should take care of this problem. And then once they fill out the department, then the department head will also get the same email. So it's going to two places. It's going to me and it's going to the department. And then I would track it to make sure it's closed out. And then, like I said, usually within 24 hours that the department head is getting back to, or somebody from the department to address. Now, I'm not saying that all the time the problem is solved, but at least there's that interaction to get maybe more information or
Well, and two, maybe some background on that. When we added that in 2018, that was during a time when we had a substantial amount of long-term employee retirements. And we needed to find a better system to track issues and making sure that we didn't have something that dropped off because of a staff turnover. And really was a better way to have a consistent avenue for citizens to go to submit that. So there's another one of your forms that is.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it works
if-
really good.
If somebody were to email a department head directly, then that's not tracked
No.
in this number?
No, that would not be. And I'm sure that social services and some public health and some of those get direct emails
Yeah,
through the website, but this is just, if somebody doesn't know where their problem should go to, they can fill out that form. And if they don't put a department in there, then they all come to me and then I figure out where it has to go. So,
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Anything else? Commissioner Ebinger.
And just real quick, want to point something out, having been a new employee last year for the first time in 18 years, but having dealt with HR issues for most of my career, really impressive, smooth transition and supportive means for our new employees to come in, to get their insurance issues handled, to get their personnel issues handled. It was just, I was very impressed with the clean, easy path that your folks presented, particularly during the time of COVID. When Mr. Kaley and I came in, we were on full bore lockdown.
right.
And I was very impressed with the process. And that goes to the forms and it goes to the staff. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. I can't say enough about my staff. Anna and Melissa are kind of the engines of the whole HR, and I just make sure the ship doesn't crash. They do an amazing job with everything, and they're both very good at what they do. So I appreciate that.
Anything else? Maybe a comment. I'm on a committee that tracks open positions, and it's been helpful as we look at how issues or things that we implement may help that number or hurt that number. And certainly when we were at the legislative update, we talked a lot about workforce issues. And I think just to have a running tally for maybe just only the PIC committee, and then we can read that to this board would be helpful as we move forward.
Okay.
Anything else? Commissioner Campbell.
Yeah, there's been an awful lot of talk about your workload over this last year. And another area that the last year and a half, there was significant time spent, and that was on our group insurance.
Yeah.
And there was an awful lot of work done on behalf of your staff as well in that regard. And ultimately, after a lot of work, it led to a really good new contract for all of our county employees.
Yep.
And so thank you, and Anna and everybody else that worked on that as well. That has been considerable savings for the entire county.
Yep.
So excellent work.
Yep. That was another thing I tried to black out.
Well, you shouldn't block that one, because that was work well done.
It was good. The switch over and then COVID all at the same time. I'll be glad when we can, like I said, get back into normal HR stuff. So,
Anything else? If not, thanks for jumping in and giving us
Okay.
your update today. Thank you.
not a problem, thank you.
Item 5 on the agenda this morning is a request to fill vacancies for 2 full-time correctional officers. We have our sheriff today and jail administrator Carrie Tooten. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, for having us here this morning. I would just like to take a brief moment to introduce you to our new jail administrator, Carrie Tooten. Some of you may or may not know her. Carrie has risen through the ranks at the sheriff's office from being a correctional officer to a sergeant to the assistant jail administrator and now the top dog role. So I'm going to let her take this one over, and I'm just here to kind of back her up if she needs it.
Thanks for the moral support. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So we're here today to ask for one item. That's for requesting the approval of 2 full-time vacancies. These positions are budgeted for. So one happens to be on probation. I don't know if you guys need to know that or not, but
All right, board questions. Commissioner Ebinger.
Do you have a list? Do you have people ready to hire in this position, or is it?
it's
gonna be
continuous.
advertised?
Yes,
So you do have some folks that are on the list, and
correct. Yep. We are currently backgrounding one. We handed out several backgrounds last Thursday. It's a continuous process. And we are currently training in 3 right now.
and will this bring you up to full staff?
No. No, we will be down 7.
And we are continuing to interview almost on a weekly basis when those applications come in, so we can stay on top of this and try and get full staffed over there so we don't have to transport and house out of county. That's one of my biggest concerns right now, is I want to try and get people back into our county as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gross to approve the request,
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Ebinger. Questions?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Haley.
So with 7 open positions, I'm wondering if you, one or both of you could just talk briefly about what the qualifications are for this job, just so we can talk about it a little bit with the public. And my impression is it's a well-paid job with good benefits, a great retirement plan, and so, you want to just cover that a little bit?
Sure. Qualifications, 18 years of age. Preferably, if you could have some background in schooling. Tech school would be great. That usually, some sort of skills usually transfers really well. Military background, our military guys tend to do really well in corrections. You don't have to have that by any means, but they tend to end up talking really well with the inmates. And so yeah, 18 years of age is our basic qualification, a GED or high school diploma. We do have our, like you had mentioned, our, sorry, our,
The one other thing with it, you do have to successfully pass a background and psychological exam as well. And then, yes, to be 18 years of age, high school diploma, GED. And you're correct, it is most definitely a good job that's well-paying with great benefits here at Clay County. So we hope, And we hope to get fully staffed soon. I've gone to the tech school and I've talked to the students there and trying to recruit some people there. But with that, they also want to get a law enforcement job and get on the road as well. So we're hoping to be able to get back up there relatively soon.
Okay. Commissioner,
We do get hung up a little bit on the background sometimes, but that's to be expected, I guess.
right?
We need to make sure we're hiring the best possible people.
And just clarification, as in any law enforcement position, citizenship is a requirement?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're certainly not surprised by the request. We know there's been staffing challenges over there. We appreciate your leadership and willingness to command the ship. Can you talk, maybe Sheriff is better, but can you talk a little bit about your conversations with DOC in regards to so many openings in the staffing pattern? What are you hearing in regards to our ability to maintain the capacity that we do have?
And that's part of the reason why we have to house out right now is because of our staffing levels. I know in talking with Carrie as well, we'd like to get 8 people on a shift prior to bringing those people back from Candido County, and we are not there yet. So we have to make sure that we're maintaining those DOC requirements prior to bringing folks back. And once we get back up to full staff, I think we will be able to bring people back, and maybe even a little bit before, maybe if we can get down to 3 openings, we'll be able to bring people back and have them in county.
And then on the flip side, how close are we to needing to have more out of county? I mean, you talked about the 7 open in the pattern. What's the next threshold down?
So right now, we're doing okay with our numbers as far as inmate population. We had hired a bunch internally, so for our court spot, we just haven't moved any of those people yet into those positions. I think in May, we're gonna lose 3 more. I just want you guys to be aware of that. But I actually think if we can slowly start bringing a couple back, I do have a meeting with the DOC inspector. He's coming up here March 31st. So I'll have a better idea of our staffing plan at that point that I can bring to you guys.
Yeah, great. Questions, Commissioner Kaylee?
Do you anticipate a need for backfill since one of them is probation with just shifting around in positions?
That would be a no. That person is already, he's already left.
Okay.
So that we wouldn't need that.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we do have a motion and a table or a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The request is granted. Thank you very much. So you are next on the agenda. I think Gabe is coming up here for the law enforcement annual update. Emergency Management Director Gabe Tweeten has joined you now. Who wants to kick it off?
I think I'll kick it off. Again, Madam Chair, Commissioners, thanks for having us this morning for our board or our annual update. We have had a busy year in 2021. I'm going to try and highlight some of that for you. This is not everything that took place in 2021, but just a glimpse of the year. We have hired some new deputies in the Sheriff's Office. Those deputies are Mike Files and Dave Cochran, as well as Office Associate Abby Benson. As you know, our office manager, Robin Rummel, ended up resigning in 2021, so Heather Croney was promoted to office manager. And then we also promoted deputies Nicole Reno and Kyle Dickman to the rank of sergeant. We did that with the loss of Ryan Alderman when he left the court position. And now Deputy Reno is the sergeant in support services, and you'll see her downstairs at the courthouse every now and again as well. You're also going to see Ryan Alderman come back. He's going to come back as a part-time deputy here in 2022, and we hope to have him back relatively soon. We continued to see some challenges with COVID in the Correctional Center. We had our first outbreak recently. Staff handled this without issues, with just some mild cases. We did have to put a slight hold on certain arrests at that time due to the staffing and due to the very limited space that we had to bring new arrests in. Our local agencies were very understanding with that. They worked with us, and we got through that relatively smoothly. As you're aware, Julie Savat retired as our jail administrator, and Justin Roberts replaced her up until recently, and we now have Jail Administrator Carrie Tooten. And we are currently working on filling the Assistant Jail Administrator position. And another challenge for us in 2021, of course, as we just heard, was staffing the correctional facility. And I'll have Carrie go into more detail with that during her presentation. Another challenge that we had in 2021, as most of you are aware, is the change in the use of force law. We've been working with our North Dakota partners for quite some time, and a law change brought that to an essential standstill. Working with many people over the past year, not only our North Dakota partners, but some of our state legislative partners, we were able to get another change in that law, and our North Dakota partners have indicated that they are now willing to come back and work with us again. I'd like to thank County Attorney Brian Melton for taking the time to put together a PowerPoint to train the North Dakota officers on our current law. And the plans are for County Attorney Melton to train those officers and get us back together working relatively soon. I foresee our mutual aid being restored quickly. I know Brian has been working on that PowerPoint rather diligently to get it done so we can have that together. Due to an unforeseen resignation in the department, we did have to retire K-9 Deacon. And then due to a generous donation from Farmstead Living, Johnson Auto, and a grant through the United States Police K-9 Association, we were able to purchase another dog. K-9 Maverick joined our department this year, and Deputy Mike Files was selected to be the K-9 handler. And Deputy Files and K-9 Maverick will be attending training starting next week to be certified. The names of our two canines are now Goose and Maverick, so I have no doubt that our deputies have a little bit of a Top Gun fan club there. Our Records Division, they stayed busy through the year with several items. They processed 162 applications for permit to purchase, and that was down a little bit because we had 213 in 2020. Our permit to carry applications increased from 964 in 2020 to 1,033 in 2021. Civil papers increased from 1,474 in 2020 to 1,955 in 2021. Warrant entries increased as well, from 1,989 in 2020 to 2,350 in 2021. They were also very busy dictating many reports and transcribing many statements throughout the year. Our investigative division, they were extremely busy throughout the year, obviously because of our partnership with North Dakota at the standstill. A lot of our investigators had to put many different hats on throughout the year. For example, our general investigations and juvenile investigators would have to help our narcotics investigators with their investigations as well, and that did go vice versa. So they were exceptionally busy in 2021 as well. We also did see a rash of thefts and burglaries in 2021, and the hot item at that time was catalytic converters. We have been able to identify suspects, and we are working on getting those people charged out as well. The Support Services Division, that again was busy, transporting inmates and MIs throughout the state. We transported 750 people in 2021 compared to 512 in 2020. Total miles driven by our transports division was 85,592 miles in 2021 compared to 64,315 in 2020. The increase is obviously due to the COVID restrictions lightening up. And then total civil papers served in 2021 were 1,890 compared to 1,401 in 2020. Again, this is due to the COVID restrictions lightening up as well. The patrol division continues to be active in ensuring the safety of our Clay County community daily. We ended the year with 21,069 calls for service compared to 16,881 calls for service in 2020. Two reasons for the increase is because we're having all deputies, to include our civil deputies, enter into our computer system each time they attempt to serve a paper or attempt to serve a warrant. So that is an increase. The other thing our patrol deputies have been very busy with throughout the year, they were busy with vehicle accidents, traffic stops, COPs, mental health related calls for service, people stuck due to the weather. We've had a very busy winter weather this year and a lot of people traveling when they shouldn't be, and then assisting other agencies within the county. Our SROs have been busy with truancy issues, juvenile welfare issues, safety issues, bus education, and partnering with Clay County Social Services, to name a few, along with several other issues relating to juveniles in and out of school. As you are aware, we did add 2 Tahoes to our patrol fleet in 2021. We have more coming this year. I'd like to thank the county board for allowing us to order our vehicles early like we have been doing. Because of this, we have all of our 2022 vehicles in that we were able to order. Also, when Chevy opened up their bid process for 2022, it was open for 6 days and it abruptly closed because they had so many orders coming in. Because we were forward thinking, because we were on the ball, we were able to get all of our orders in, and we were probably one of the few that were able to do that. So thank you for allowing us to do that. It has paid off. Hiring, we are seeing something that we have not seen in the past, with the number of applicants have certainly dropped. Our current hiring process, which is still open, we've had only 7 applications, and of those 7, only 2 people filled out the applications completely and properly. The other applications were incomplete, and one of them didn't turn it in on time. We reviewed what other departments have been doing throughout the state. Some of them are offering hiring bonuses up to $6,000. They're front-loading vacation and sick time. Some are doing lateral transfers, and there's one department out there just giving like a full month off that doesn't go against your PTO time. I think, because of this, I think we got to start looking at some unique ways to try and recruit and retain people for Clay County. Like I said, that was just a glimpse and a snapshot of what's been going on with the department in 2021, and then Gabe and Carrie will obviously talk about emergency management in the Correctional Center. But last, I would just like to thank the county board for your support to the sheriff's office. I know a lot of times in other places of the state, the county board and the sheriff's office may not work together like we do and get along like we do, but it's very nice to have this relationship, and I do appreciate that, so thank you.
Carrie?
You like to go?
Sure. Flip your mic on, though.
Your mic. Go turn your mic on.
As far as where we're at staffing wise, we had talked about it. So every week we seem to have, like this coming Friday, we do have another set of interviews. It'll be 5 more interviews. We are continuously seeing interviews coming through. So I'm very hopeful that we'll get there eventually. So it's gonna take time in the event of everything that we're seeing right now. But I am hopeful that we'll get there. Katie and I do have a plan of going to the tech school, NDSU, MSU, the colleges here, and actually kind of putting boots to the ground and actually going to these classes, and maybe if they actually see us there, they can actually ask us questions to get people in the door here as well. So that's our plan. Once we get a little more settled in where we're at, over at the jail, that's our plan.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful that we're gonna get people in the door and get settled in, so.
For the board, I'm sorry, for the board, one of the things that Carrie has done since she's become the jail administrator is she has really taken those sergeant positions that we currently have, and she's taken duties that she used to do and that she's currently doing, and she has spread those throughout the sergeants now. So our sergeants are becoming more, they're supervising the staff, but they're also doing some administrative roles as well. So she's been able to spread some duties so she's not so busy all the time. So it's going to allow her some time to get out and do some of those recruitment efforts as well.
Okay. Commissioner Campbell had a question.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're talking about the methods to recruit.
Yeah.
I think it's important, and maybe a contact with all of those different educational institutions in terms of when they may have career days and that type of thing, to be able to go and talk to them during those times. And it seems to me that another approach might be with Moorhead Public Schools and their career academy.
Yep.
Might be a really, and I think, Sheriff, you've talked a little
We've
bit
talked
about that
about that,
before. But I think that's another opportunity to be able to get in and because as Commissioner Cayley said early on, for somebody with the minimum requirements in terms of age and that thing moving forward, it does offer a good compensation and good benefits.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to shout that to the mountaintops, I think, for some of these young kids to be able to get in to help us out.
For sure.
Can you just elaborate a little bit on COVID and maybe our recent outbreak and then what we've been seeing there?
Yeah, so actually, it would have been the day after the resignation, I guess, of my predecessor. Actually, not the resignation, the day after he was done. Actually, I think I called you and said we had quite the outbreak in our major pod, which was Red River. That was our medium population. So at that point, I had called the sheriff and we had to kind of shut everything down because that's our medium population, which is our kind of our heftier type crimes. So at that point, we had to really minimize what we were taking in, because at that point, we had to follow what's called the toolkit that's set forth by the Minnesota Department of Health. Not necessarily the CDC, because they have a little bit different set of guidelines from the Minnesota Department of Health. So we have to follow the toolkit, and that toolkit says that we had to, anybody who's exposed has to be basically sidelined and kind of set aside from everybody for 15 days. Anybody who tests positive has to be quarantined away from everybody for 10 days. So, and if we'd test them every 5 days. If that group tests positive again, that restarts the 15 days. So we were seeing that happening probably every 5 days for the first 10, 15 days. So that's what continued our process for, it was roughly 30 days, I think it was. So that's what kept setting us back until we could get it under control. So that is why we had to essentially shut down for a while.
Can you talk a little bit about the work release piece? What have you been able to do over the last year? What has been put on hold? What are your hopes?
Sure. So with work release, everything's been put on hold for now. The way I'm seeing it right now, I think we can essentially get back, I'm hoping in May. I guess that's kind of a timeline I'm shooting for. Maybe I'm being over optimistic, I guess, but it seems like our numbers are going down with COVID. So I'm hoping that we can just get beyond this. I'm thinking that everybody wants to get beyond this. So I'm hoping that we can start work release and start getting back to normal shooting in spring.
Is that a local decision? Is that a state-guided decision?
That's a local.
That's a local
That'd be a local decision that we have in place with the board and us. We have the person named, we have the new Monty, so to speak, named.
Yeah.
That's going to be Correctional Officer Cole Stoll,
Yep.
and he will be hopefully out there this summer helping our rural communities with their rural town celebrations and everything like that.
Again, with work release, that's going to take a little bit of our program staff, and right now our program staff is pulled to work on shift work right now. So
Maybe I need clarification. I thought there was a difference between work release and work crew.
there is a difference.
Okay.
Yep.
So all of it's on hold.
Correct.
Currently, yep.
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 It's all on hold. So there's work detail and there's work release. So nobody's going out right now.
We have work release, that's our crew that goes out. I'm sorry, work detail, that's our crew
Right.
that goes out. Work release are people that are able to go out, work during the day and then come back
Right.
in the facility.
Well, and I know you're having tough conversations, and certainly there needs to be staffing to support it, but, you know, I know the undue hardship that comes on to those inmates for not being able to work. I mean, it really is a ripple down effect for their families that they may need to be supporting as well. So I'm hopeful that we can have, you know, you can have some pretty tough conversations about when is the right time for that, but certainly we're seeing really promising trends in terms of what COVID numbers are doing community-wide. We now are in a low community transmission level as the CDC just reclassified Clay County, and you know, I think we are in maybe a good spot to bring that back.
Right.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Yes, one of the issues that really was in the forefront when we built the new correctional facility was a problem with mental health in our community. And as chief of police, I was part of the conversation. My predecessor, Commissioner Whalen, Commissioner Campbell, one of the things we put forward that the community really expects and that we committed to is mental health services would be available to people in crisis in the Clay County Jail. The Rivers Project, part of this was brought up at the conference I attended last week by Sheriff Leslie from Dakota County as a model that they're looking at. I do understand that there's been a real drop in use of those resources. Is there a specific reason, COVID-related or procedurally, that might explain that?
The River Project's still going strong. The only issue is that they had a mental health professional that moved on to another facility. She is now with another mental health practice in Fargo. So that dropped it down. Now we only have one mental health professional, and he's not able to carry the same workload as two mental health professionals. So that's the only drop-off there.
Okay, we're still, mental health professional with this project, they still have access to the.
Oh, absolutely.
There's been no
Yep.
change in.
No, and if anything, I would love to have 3 river projects going on.
I agree.
Not, yeah. Yep, we need more of those type of programs, not.
I was chair of that organization that provided the the social mental health
Yep.
practitioners, and I do know that there's been major movement to provide ITV therapy. Has that been something that we've utilized over the last year?
So, yeah, when COVID hit and they weren't able to communicate with them face-to-face, we would use our texting devices. And so our professionals would have a iPad type, and then we would set up a visitation, I guess, through an iPad with them.
So that, for an inmate, was not a billable charge?
No.
Those
Nope.
were completely,
That was, yeah, free services.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on that piece? Follow-up? Commissioner Kaylee?
I just want to thank you. So you're fresh in this position, but you're coming with so much institutional knowledge. We've been throwing a lot of questions at you, and you're handling it very gracefully. Thank you. Sort of on the same piece, I'm wondering what else has COVID changed for inmate life, maybe with visitation with families and things, and what do you anticipate staying or changing as we move out of this period?
As far as COVID goes, with visitation hasn't really changed that much. They actually have more access. It's changed the world of the use of our iPad type. Everything is digital now, like Zoom type situations. So they can visit almost 24/7 on, if they have the funds to be able to do it, I guess. They can talk nonstop with their family through their cells, which is, and the other thing we've allowed now is if they are on lockdown, we understand that, and they've committed a violation within the jails, they are on lockdown 23 hours a day, which for their mental health, and they're stuck in this small cell, we realize it only makes things worse for them and their behavior. So we've allowed them to keep their texting device, which allows them the support of their family still to be able to talk to them. So we haven't cut them off from that, because that's a serious need for them. So that's something that COVID has really enabled us to figure out, is the technology part, and that goes for everybody else. Court, same thing, it's allowed us to be able to enhance our court services as well. So figure out how to, use Zoom from other counties without having to transport. It's saved a lot of money.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner Campbell?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to, again, congratulate you on your new position. I think it's fantastic, and going along with what Commissioner Cayley just said about you, I think you're really showing your knowledge here today.
Appreciate it.
And we, as I look forward to, and I'm sure our board looks forward to you working through the dilemmas that you have, that you have to deal with in that facility. And congratulations.
Thank you. It's been an adventure.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that I hope that you see us as a resource to help work through those issues that you do have next door. We really are committed to the services that we implemented in that facility, and I know that you were a part of those discussions as well. And this is just a time in history where we're dealing with some significant workforce challenges, and I'm hopeful that we can help you through those as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right,
Oh, Steve.
Steve.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, back to Commissioner Everger's question earlier. I did get an email from Rhonda Porter during this conversation in regards to the river project. And just in context, there was 1,131 different contacts with inmates last year. And at this point, even having one less provider, we have 190 hours more in between January 1st and March 15th than we did last year at this time.
Okay.
Thanks for that information. And
Thanks,
thank
Rhonda.
Rhonda.
All right, Gabe, we're not going to give you
I'm up.
accolades. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, just like with any other department, 2021 was busy for emergency management. Maybe not so much in the traditional sense. We didn't have any, knock on wood, major weather-related disasters or anything, but a large part of my year in 2021 was providing COVID support to public health. So a lot of delivering product, attending meetings, helping them out. And then another big part of my summer last year was working in a regional emergency operations center in support of the Line 3 project, which was a really good experience for the regional emergency managers in the northwest part of Minnesota. I spent, probably every week at least a couple days up either in Crookston or Thief River Falls, just depending on where activity was in Line 3. So that was a really good, just a really good exercise for our regional emergency managers, being able to operate a regional emergency operations center in the event we were to have something large in Clay County and maybe we didn't have the staffing to staff our EOC, we'd be able to rely on them to come. So it was a really good, essentially a regional exercise. As far as funding projects, I did wrap up a FEMA project, COVID-related FEMA project. I wrapped it up in 21. It was for overtime costs incurred during 2020, and I believe in February we received those funds. That was $113,000 is what FEMA approved on that. So it's a long process to go through. And then EMPG funding, which is what pays for, it's state funding that we get annually, as long as it's available, to help fund my position. And that, again, there's a grant requirements. I met those in 21. Funding's been approved, and HSEM is just a little behind on getting those out due to staffing levels for them, COVID related. So hopefully we will be getting those funds in the near future. A couple things that emergency management continually is working on that maybe happens behind the scenes, but our federal requirements for Clay County is our hazard mitigation plan, which is constantly under review and updated as need be. And that we finished the approval process going on 2 years ago now. So that is annually looked at, and for the time being, most of the updates just are more contact and, as positions change and things like that. The other required plan that the county has to have per the federal government and the state is our emergency operations plan. And that also goes under, every year there's a different portion in the review process. And in 21, it was peer review. So a group of peers from Northwest Minnesota that are emergency managers or different people in the emergency management field review the county's emergency operations plan and make recommendations on that. And again, through that process, there's always some updates, a lot of, names change, addresses change, but some of the major things that I'll be working on this year in the plan update is our shelter plan. The American Red Cross supports a lot of our shelters. They have designated shelters throughout the county. They are kind of retweaking what they can support, so I'm in the process right now of kind of reviewing all of the identified shelters throughout the county. We'll probably be trimming that list down a little, at least as far as what the American Red Cross will support. That doesn't mean we don't have other shelters that would maybe be supported by public health, but that's kind of on my to-do list right now, and then that will be updated into the emergency management plan. So 21 was peer review, 22 will be HSEM. We'll review the plan, and then we start all over the cycle again, where it would be county board approval and going through that. A couple of the other committees, I guess, that emergency management sits on. I'm part of the radio advisory committee for the Northwest Minnesota radio board. The committee makes recommendations to the board, which Commissioner Ebbinger sits on. And this is regarding all of our emergency, like our ARMA radio systems, iPods, any of the other like emergency notification type, I guess, deals that are available through the state radio system. And that we meet monthly on that, but there tends to be a little bit more behind the scenes that goes on with that. I'm part of the safety committee for the county. And then I also meet with the County EMS Association and the Fire Chiefs Association. So I try to help them out with equipment needs, training needs, I guess, the conduit between those associations and the county or other emergency services. So a lot of times, like the sheriff's office or, fire departments work in coordination with our volunteer rescue services and ambulance services. So I just kind of help coordinate and make sure that communication is happening. I sit on the ARPA committee for the county, which I really enjoy. It's very interesting. I get to work with a great group of people, and it is really, I guess, probably broadened my knowledge and views of just all the different services that are provided in our communities. So really do appreciate the opportunity to sit on that, and I appreciate the group of people that I get to serve with. And now with I guess, as we're hopefully entering into an endemic state of the pandemic, trainings have been going again. So for myself, I've been able to attend much more or more in-person trainings and hopefully continue to do that throughout the year, emergency management related. And I'm also trying to start bringing in some more trainings. So I really appreciate all the RSVPs on the senior elected officials trainings modules that we'll be offering. They should be very good trainings. Joe Kelly, the director of HSCM, is a retired general. Dynamic speaker, does a really good job. So I really am grateful for the commissioners stepping up and RSVPing on that. So thank you for that. And other than that, I've really just the pandemic has kind of given us an opportunity to, explore new technologies, and I really have made a good effort to continue building relationships, not only, just within Clay County, but my counterparts across the river. We tend to, if it's not communicating in person, have Teams meetings quite frequently, and then EMs throughout the state of Minnesota. Again, a lot of our work is kind of behind the scenes, but in the event we have a crisis, that pre-planning really becomes important. So With that, I guess I open it up to any questions.
Just a comment, I know I was razzing you a little bit before you started speaking, but I do want to thank you for your presence on that ARPA committee. You really bring pragmatic leadership and understanding of really what the needs are in the community. You're such a community-based person that's really been beneficial on that board. And I tell you what, if you need someone to get you an answer or a solution in a very quick amount of time, Gabe does a fantastic job of that. So thank you, Sheriff, for sharing his time on that board with us. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. I too want to, I think you downplayed your work on our ARPA committee. I think you've been you mentioned something about broadening your experience, but you broadened our perspective as a committee dealing, we had a lot of discussion about community resiliency and how we can improve our communications, for example, with new Americans. You brought a lot to the table in regards to that conversation. And how law enforcement plays a role in that discussion moving forward. And I don't think I heard the word flood come out of your mouth.
And that's, at this time of year, it's all behind the scenes work. I have a meeting.
But I have to say, I've certainly dealt with you a lot, and your leadership in that regard all along has been good. I'm hoping that you don't have to exercise that leadership and knowledge this spring. I'm hoping that we end up with zero. But again, I just want to thank you. I've talked a little bit about ARPA here, but all the work that you do is good in your emergency management role. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Evinger.
Gabe, you have really set a high standard for the position you hold, and people on this board know it. In working with you on the Northwest Emergency Communication, I've yet to make a live meeting with you at the same time. It's a long drive to Thief River Falls, and this week I'm going to have to do it virtual because I have a meeting here in town an hour afterwards. But that between you and Brian Zastapel from the RRDC, I think that entire board kind of sees Clay County and the RRDC as the pinnacle of where they want to be. And it's an important thing right now. We're doing a lot of work with RRDC. We're talking about a new dispatch center. We're talking about balanced services on both sides of the river. And to have somebody on top of things the way you are and the way Brian is, and the reputation you've given this organization, this part of the state, has been invaluable. And I hope everybody in Clay County realizes the standards that are being set and the services that are being brought to them, and you're part of that. In addition to the fact, and I won't use the F word either, but we don't want one of those this spring. But we're prepared, and I know that from my experience as chief. I know that from serving on the Diversion Authority. This is something that we're finally going to get a handle on. We're going to hold our breath for about 5 years. But if we do have a flood, I know that we're ready to respond and do it as a community. So I'm grateful for that, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kaylee.
Before we let you all leave, I did have one more question for the sheriff. A couple weeks ago, we had the drug court here giving their update, and one of the things we heard was that you had made a shift in your funding. I know that you absolutely appreciate the investment that drug court is in the community, and individuals that want to make a change so that they're using less of your resources and staff time. I think it's evident today that you have the support of the board, both historically and currently. So I would just encourage you, if there is a need, to come to us and with a request instead of trying to shift funds around. And I know that was just a small piece, but I would encourage you to come and talk to us.
Yeah, there was a couple different decisions that went into making that, so it's not an easy decision to make, but it was one that I did make, so, and I stand behind it. That was my decision alone.
Questions, comments? If not, thank you for your update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are running a little bit behind, but I will ask that we could take a brief break, please, and then we will be back here in 5 minutes. I'll go ahead and call us back into session. Our item 8 this morning is a building maintenance request for our capital improvement items. Our facilities director, Joe Olson, is here. Item A would be to move forward with a low quote for an upgrade to the power plant diesel tank controls.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, board members. This is a 16,000 gallon tank that's over at the power plant. What we're doing is requesting to replace just the system itself that monitors it, along with all the pumps. It's the backup system to the boiler system over there and the generator as well. So, yeah, we are requesting to move forward with the low quote, and this is part of our capital improvement plan under the power plant category.
Okay. Questions?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gross to approve the request.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Did I forget something?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make sure that we had the, who was appointed the bid as part of that.
Yeah, we were proposing to go with the low quote of R&R Petroleum.
Okay. And that item was in our agenda packets. Is that, we've already voted on it, but I want the board to understand that's who it is. All right, thank you. Item B would be to advertise for bids for a cold storage building project at the Highway Department.
Yeah, so this one is part of under the highway category of the capital improvement. I think I'll let Dave kind of kick it off. He knows the history of this
Right.
shared facility.
All right, Joe's been helping take the lead on this project. We've been working with the state as it is a shared building. It's 1/3 MnDOT, 2/3 Clay County. It was built roughly 20-plus years ago as a shared building. Like you said, 1/3, 2/3. It's, the fabric material has outlived its life. There's a wooden kind of a fascia on the bottom, like a wainscoting, that's completely wore out, and you can push your finger through the wood. So, I mean, it's met its life. The needs also for the state have changed as they've got those large tow plows. They have one right now housed inside of our warm storage area, and they have a need for one additional one. So what they would like to do is build another structure to house the two, and it would be heated structure for these tow plows, and then to house the, I think a lot of that snow fencing goes in there 1/3, as well as some crack filling materials that goes in there. So their needs are for a warm storage type of a building for the tow plows. Our needs are strictly for maybe more additional storage, because we do have mowers and other things sitting outside. So our 2/3 doesn't fully handle the equipment that we need. In negotiations with them, they've agreed to help demolish the structure itself, keep the concrete, and then I think there's enough room out there where they would build in one of two locations, not on top of this footprint. And then the county, then we'd like to move forward, and we've gotten their approval, as well as the city of Moorhead's, being it's a kind of a joint area, to rebuild additional cold storage right on top of this existing area. So it's worked out fantastic for everybody, and cooperation has been very good with all entities.
Commissioner Campbell.
Yeah, I think it's a great, I just have more of a technical question in terms of ownership of the land. Who owns all of this land?
It's equal thirds.
It is in equal thirds?
Right.
Okay. Okay. 'Cause I noticed that it appears that their new building would be taking up more footprint than the 1/3 that they had on the other. And I just didn't know if could there be potential for some issue regarding land ownership in the future? That's all I'm asking is.
Commissioner Campbell, what we've actually had discussions on that where you see that building now possibly might not be there. They got 2 or 3 different locations, and we've met and talked that we're going to meet with the city of Moorhead and MnDOT when they put that up to make sure that the flow of their traffic in and out works good. I think We just happened to, this was the first idea that they came up with.
Okay.
But yeah, they're actually talking a couple different options.
I think we always have the discussion when we build things, we like to own the land that's underneath it, and I'm assuming that MnDOT might like to make sure that there's something there too. And it's just a technicality. But
Yeah,
it's one that could come back in future years if we don't address it.
Yeah, it's a good question. Then also the agreement, we plan on bringing the agreement back. Let's say we open bids prior to awarding. If we do, we're going to bring back an amended agreement that between all three entities, and that states everything that's happening in here too. So we should be able to add the language we need for that. So
Very good, thank you.
Right, if you remember, we did recently amend that agreement for space storage and that sort of thing. The current agreement still references this building as 1/3 and 2/3, so once it gets demolished, that won't be enough. So we're just gonna clean that up. We've been working with Clay County Attorney as well as the state's legal staff, and we'll make a small amendment to address the new buildings moving forward. And just to touch on that land question that you brought up, I believe as long as all three entities are in agreement, is kind of how the language says in there that they should be. Like I said, we just got to make sure we continue to bring this to our joint meeting, which we have, and make sure the city's okay with these new buildings.
Well, I'm certainly encouraged. Joe, I think this has been a great reason for your reclassification in your job, is to help our different departments work through bills like this, and I appreciate the collaboration between you both. I'm hopeful that it saves us all some time and headache to have such a joint approach to it, so thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Not? There is a ask. The request is to advertise for bids for the cold storage project.
yeah, just to clarify too, we would open bids on April 12th. And just as a side note, that happens, timing-wise, happens to be the same day we're opening bids for the for the three shops too.
Okay.
So they both will come in that same day.
Coordinate together. Good.
Move to approve the.
Motion by Commissioner Gross to approve the request.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further comments? Questions? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes.
One more side note, I think Joe's effort on this has been really fantastic. He has at least pushed this at least 2 years in advance, so we would have been sitting on those bond dollars and spending them and not having our building. So his work on this has at least pushed this a couple of years in advance, which is fantastic. I sure appreciate it. It's been
Yep.
good.
It'll be nice to get done. Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Dave.
Item 9 on the agenda this morning is a request for an allocation of our American Rescue Plan dollars to use those funds for technology service licensing. Rory, good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. A few weeks ago at my department update, one of the items there I mentioned, we had some unallocated funds that in previous years in 2020 and 2021 that we used CARES or ARPA funding for some Microsoft licensing and some remote connectivity VPN licensing. And that was unaccounted for this last fall, as I was relatively new to the position and missed those account codes. So the recommendation from Commissioner Campbell was to go to the ARPA committee, which we did last week. And today I'm here to present the findings of that meeting and, ask for some ARPA funding to cover some of those costs for 2022. On one of your attachments, there's an expense spreadsheet where it shows some differences between the licensings that we have, and the ask today would be for $24,103.70 to cover those expenses.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell?
Madam Chair, I do want to say that we did discuss this in our ARPA committee, and we do feel that this is an appropriate use of those funds.
Thank you.
So unless there's any questions, I think the recommendation from the ARPA committee was to move forward and approve the 24,103.70.
Also, just to kind of, one thing that we've done with those ARPA funds and those requests is to really analyze the needs and if they stemmed from COVID. And I think it's easy to understand how your department has been affected by COVID and the additional needs and technology that we've seen because of COVID. Just the response from your department to address those needs was so wonderful. And I appreciate the fact that you understood that there was a need and we needed to make sure that as many employees had as access to the technology as possible. That's really why we're seeing the request from your department. So I certainly understand that it stemmed from the pandemic, and we're continuing to deal with the fallout from the pandemic on those fronts. But this request will allow additional ways for services for all departments to do their jobs.
That's correct. Thank you.
Commissioner Ebinger.
I move we approve use of ARPA funds for these expenses in an amount of $24,103.70.
Second.
Okay, we do have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger, a second by Commissioner Campbell to approve the request to come out of ARPA funding. Any further comments or questions? Anything further? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The request passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for your work. Item 10 on our agenda is a request for allocation of ARPA funds for a social worker in our Disability Services Department. We have Supervisor Jessica Mickelson this morning and our Social Service Director, Rhonda Porter.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Yes, we are here today.
Mike.
There we go. Is it on?
If it's green, it's on.
All right, thank you. We are here today to request ARPA funds for a social work position that would be for 1 year, starting in April if we, or whenever we get the candidate on board, and going forward 1 year. We are asking for 50% of that cost to be funded under ARPA funds at a total of $49,766. The other half of that position would be funded via revenue that position would generate based on the workload.
Great.
Originally, we had submitted a proposal for the position to be a 2-year position. We did bring this to the PIC committee on February 22nd and then subsequently to the ARPA committee on February 28th. And hopefully I don't mischaracterize the outcome of the ARPA committee, but I believe it was to support a 1-year position with the option of maybe consideration of a 2nd year. So I submitted the proposal with the 1 year at this point.
Okay.
So I'll let Jessica just maybe give a little bit of background about what the position would be involved with.
Great.
So the request is for a 0.5 adult and disability intake position and a 0.5 Min Choices assessor. So both program areas have seen significant growth in the last 3 to 4 years, with notable growth stemming from the pandemic due to an increase in mental health related requests for Min Choices assessments and intake phone calls. So the intake position specifically completes intake responsibilities for general inquiries, civil commitments, behavioral health, disability services, and Min Choices assessments. And a Min Choices assessment is the state tool that we utilize to determine someone's program eligibility for home and community-based services, PCA, various programs like that.
Okay. All right. Questions? Commissioner Campbell?
And no questions, just a couple of comments based on the discussions in our ARPA committee. And, you know, I think it was appropriate and the recommendation was to do this on a 1-year basis to start with. For one thing, moving out on a 2-year position like this and requesting ARPA funds for it and being COVID related, we don't know how that is going, how that would relate 2 years out, However, this would allow us to assess the position once it's in place. And I think our board is going to have a conversation about reserving a portion of our future ARPA funds for reevaluating some of these things and to see if they further qualify. And so, you know, this is still all new to us, unlike the CARES Act where we had 90 days, I think, or 120 days to spend $4 or $5 or $6 million. In this go around, we have $12 million, but we have 4 years to do it. And so it allows us a little bit better opportunity to assess the things that we're doing and to make sure that it's appropriate use of those funds. And even if it isn't appropriate for those funds, it doesn't mean that the position isn't worthy of moving forward. So just to clarify that, so we need to understand that, and yeah, so the PIC committee kind of had deferred the discussion to ARPA, you know, for the idea in mind to make sure that there would be that 50% funding from ARPA. So,
Commissioner Gross.
How is this position going to bring in more money? I mean, you say half is going to be provided by ARPA and the other half by the funds that they bring in. How are they, I mean, we're going to determine whether they're eligible for funds. So how does that bring in more funds for paying for the position?
Yeah, the position, our intent is to have 50% of their workload be working on the intake side of things. And the other 50% will be doing min-choices assessments. And that piece of their work, they can claim for reimbursement, where they can't do that on the other 50%. So that's where that revenue comes from. Jessica, do you have anything to add? Does that make sense?
I guess, how do they claim for reimbursement? I mean, how does the county get more money out of it?
It's through our social services time study through Random Moments, which is a state program that, so we'll have to figure out the details as to how that person, they'll really are gonna have to track their time and what is assessment and what is intake, and then they'll be entered into the Random Moments system and be able to claim revenue that way.
You say we're able to claim from the state? Do we get more money from the state? then?
Yes, there's a state and a federal share to that revenue. So right now, we currently receive that revenue based on work that other staff do. So with adding this 0.5 position, we calculated what that revenue stream would look like with a 0.5, you know, half of a caseload. And so that's where we anticipated that revenue increasing to cover at least half of that position.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, maybe just to follow up to that. So,
Sure, Campbell.
you know, as a county, we're kind of the state's local administrative service for all of these positions. And so when we do that, then there's certain things that qualify for additional reimbursement. And that's what we're talking about here is this position or the halftime position would qualify for reimbursement for those services on behalf of the state and federal government.
Correct, thank you.
I also want to appreciate the fact that you added the revenues into the funding for the position itself. As you know, we've taken very seriously how to best utilize the funds that we've been given for American Rescue Plan, and your flexibility in your request and understanding that we can evaluate it after a year is certainly appreciated on my part. I'm hopeful that these dollars can really go to positively benefit the clients in which you serve. They really are struggling because of issues the pandemic brought forth, and really am hopeful that this will be a bright spot in their life, so thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the position.
A motion by Francis to approve the request.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11, there is a request before us for an allocation of ARPA funds for the Silver Linings Senior Housing Development Project. Our Administrator, Steve Larson. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. As Commissioner Mojo mentioned, this past week, Churches United came before our ARPA committee in sharing that they'd recently applied for funding through the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for the Silver Lining Senior Housing Development. That's a senior living project for 55 years of old tenants that are in danger of becoming homeless or persons with disabilities. I handed out a form for each of you that was provided to us during the presentation from Churches United in regards to a little bit about the building as a whole, and then also what services will be provided. As we know through our process of different building projects that we've had, there's been some escalation brought about by COVID. Their initial project was estimated to be right around $7.6 million. And when the bid opening happened this past December, they were roughly about $1.8 million short in having a funding gap. And so they've had some initial discussions with the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. They were suggested to go back and look at their project. They've done some value engineering to lower the overall cost of the project, but they're also looking for some additional funding resources, which they came before us. And so after listening to their project and the request before them, the ARPA committee has suggested bringing forward a recommendation of providing $150,000 of ARPA funds for the Silver Lining Senior Housing Development. With that, I'd yield for any questions.
For discussion, Commissioner Evinger.
Just a comment. I'm familiar with Churches United from the first day I got here. Former Commissioner Whalen, who was chief of police and stuck around for a couple of weeks to break me in, told me in no uncertain terms that when people don't get housing in this part of the country, they die. The vulnerable people do. This is an ask that is not going to be fully satisfied, or their need is not going to be fully satisfied with this amount, but this is a reasonable amount for us to put towards the ultimate cause of getting the funding up to speed with COVID increases. We've seen that in our own projects. We know that the expenses are there. The supply chain problems are there. And this is an unexpected COVID-related impact on their project that's going to serve this community well. These are not only people who are currently homeless, but it's a particularly vulnerable population. So I think this is reasonable use of the ARPA funds.
Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. This last week, while we were at our AMC conference, we had an opportunity to speak with our local legislatures, and I think Commissioner Mojo did a nice job in raising some of the concerns that we also have in terms of projects that have been state funded, and they were funded based on previous applications and dollar amounts that were anticipated with the need. And unfortunately, none of us had crystal balls in determining what would happen with the escalated prices of materials and all those things that went in. We've experienced that with our transfer station project significantly. You know, so we did bring that to our legislatures with the idea in mind that maybe they can help those projects that they've already committed to even more with especially when the state is looking at a $9 billion surplus. That we had that discussion in ARPA with them, that we felt it was important for Churches United to go back to that source as well, because I believe the number that they were looking at before some engineering changes, they were looking at about a $1.8 million deficit compared to where they had originally planned. So although, you know, I think this is again a piece that, had this been under the old CARES Act issue when we were dealing with, it would have fallen under the category of community resiliency. And so while we wish we wouldn't have to do this, I agree with Commissioner Ebinger that I think it's important for some seniors that might not otherwise have an affordable place to be, or they could end up in other programs of the county that could be much more expensive.
Commissioner Kaylee.
I learned a year and a half ago that our senior population is one of the fastest growing homeless populations in our area. And so there is a real big need here, and our seniors are incredibly valuable people in our community. Affordable senior housing is hard to find. And this addresses a real need. And the way that they have this facility designed is going to be a wonderful place for the folks that need it. So I'm very happy to support this. I think it is a very good use of our funds. And I hope churches and the homeless population in the area knows that we do care about them. They are valuable, and we want to see them taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gross.
I got no question on this request, but I noticed now the last 3 items in our agenda have been requests for ARPA funds. And we really have no idea, myself, I mean, probably you're on the ARPA committee, you do, but one of the commissioners, I have no idea what ARPA funds, what's left in there. And I'm approving ARPA funds, so do I know there's money there or not, or how much there is, or, I think what I mentioned last week, we have our work group, I'd like to get something with ARPA funds on there to see how that all works. I mean, I guess a pretty good idea how it works, but I don't know how much is left there, what's left there? 2 million, 3 million, I don't know. So when I approve this money, I don't know if there is money. So just my comment on that.
And that is a completely fair statement. We have, Steve and I have had conversation, and I'll be reporting on it soon, but I'm requesting that we have another committee of the whole work group next week. This will be an item that I would like to have a spreadsheet of, similar to the CARES Act funding, where we had the categories in which we'd spent, what was allocated, what was earmarked, what was remaining. And I apologize for not getting you that information beforehand. As chair, I'll take responsibility for that. I think this is maybe the first of a series of requests that will come before this board. We've been hesitant to act too quickly on some of those, but certainly there is a substantial amount of dollars left in those accounts. There is funding available for that, and the board will be updated soon on that.
Okay.
I completely and wholeheartedly understand where this need has been based out of. I have seen trends. I'm on community action. I've heard stories. I've had conversation with churches. I think this is a very needed build. I might go a little farther than Commissioner Campbell's comments. I'm concerned at projects that received state grant dollars based on an application and an estimate and where we thought costs were. And I appreciate that there's been value engineering to reduce this request to about $355,000, even more than that. And I had told churches that I certainly feel that this qualifies for ARPA funding. I'm a little concerned at if we do approve this request, there still is a substantial gap in terms of funding, and I'm hopeful that other community partners can step up, the Minnesota Housing can step up. But what happens if they don't receive that and can't build it? Have we asked, are those in place? Is there a timeline in terms of when this needs to be? And this is more of a technicality question, not support. I fully support the request, but want to make sure that we've had those conversations.
Madam Chair, I have talked with Pastor Sue, and they are trying to establish what those timelines would be. I did bring forward that based on our conversations with the ARPA committee, that any allocation this board would make would be contingent on the fact that they do receive full funding.
So if they, for some reason, receive the full $1.8 million in the gap from Minnesota Housing, what would happen to our request?
That would then return to the county.
Okay, all right. And furthermore, I think it's important for us as decision makers to be very cognizant and aware of the pinch in senior housing and those that are on a fixed income. We have to make really hard decisions every year on what programs make sense. And I think that we need to be even more aware of the burden on taxation to those that have fixed incomes. I don't want to overburden that population to where this need grows even greater. I think there's enough factors in our community that will do that anyhow. But it's something that we need to be increasingly aware of. Any further questions?
I move for approval of this payment out of ARPA funds.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger to approve the request, a second by Commissioner Kaylee. I'd like to have the full amount in the motion. I don't have it in front of me.
$150,000.
$150,000.
$150,000. We have a motion and a second. Are there any further discussion? Any further discussion?
That's pending full approval. Finance.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carried. Thank you, and you'll work with churches to coordinate that. Thank you. Our next item would be our committee reports. Commissioner Gross, would you like to start today?
The one meeting, I guess, the one that we all were at was the AMC. The night before the AMC, I was at the Minnesota Rural Caucus meeting, and there, the first concern that we brought up was some of the people are concerned that the counties don't have any authority to set the speed limits on county roads. And what they're gonna, and I guess I thought what it would start out to be that they want to raise the speed limits. But what it was really, they want to lower the speed limits on county roads in areas where there's schools or hospitals or what have you, busy places. So they want to get the authority, that they have the authority to lower rates or lower speed limits or raise them in some areas. So, and the next thing was a lot of discussion on was county-based purchasing. And I think I found out before that we're Clay County, it's not on county-based purchasing, but there's a lot of counties that are, I guess there's been a law on there for 25 years that's not being followed, and they're very concerned about that effort. More discussion on broadband, and I guess we pretty much covered our discussions there. And other than that, we went over to the legislative, talked to Senator Eakin and Representative Markwart. And then on Thursday, we went to the AMC Policy Committee meeting in general government with Commissioner Kaylee. Talked to us about the library funding and gave a good overview of that. And pretty much the policies that are going to be brought forward this year in the legislature. Covers my.
Thank you, Commissioner Gross. Commissioner Kaylee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, the first through the third, we were all at AMC. On Tuesday, Commissioner Jim Showalter, Wednesday, sorry. Commissioner Jim Showalter from Minnesota Management and Budget gave us an overview of where things are sitting currently, and then we went to the Capitol. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Senator Eakin and Representative Markwart for making time in their busy schedules to meet with us. That face-to-face time and relationship building is really important, and I really appreciate their interest in understanding what our county priorities are. So thank you to them and for the hospitality that they showed us in giving us a little tour of the Senate and House chambers. Thursday, yes, I did get to present to the General Government Policy Committee on the bill, House File 1710, which is for a $2 million increase for regional library basic system support, and then also a formula change to make that formula more stable. That bill is really critical for the future of libraries in Greater Minnesota in particular. The way the current formula is set up, more money ends up going to the metro area. So it's really important also to understand that all library systems in the state of Minnesota are in unanimous agreement that this formula change will benefit them. With the increase of the $2 million, it holds all systems harmless with their current allocations from that funding. And that funding has not seen an increase since 2008. So this very small increase in the formula change is just a small piece that we can do to ensure that our public libraries are there connecting our citizens to broadband, to computers, and to the other resources that they need to have successful and fulfilling lives. After that presentation, then I ran over to my policy committee, which is Health and Human Services, and we heard from Commissioner Jody Harpstead from the Department of Human Services, Jan Malcolm from the Minnesota Department of Health, and then we had a few other presentations as well on modernization of human services and what public health looks like down the road. Great discussions there. One of the other benefits of going to AMC, and I know it was really great to have our full board there, we got to do a lot of networking with other commissioners from different counties to learn what they're spending their ARPA funds on, what their big projects are, what is working and not working in the counties, and then we're able to bring those ideas back to our county. So it is a real benefit to the county to have us all there for that. Friday morning, I attended First Fridays by the Cass Clay Food Commission. There was a discussion on our meat food systems in the area. NDSU Meat Science was there, as well as NDSCS, and She Said Butcher, which is a new business right here in North Moorhead, as well as Meats by John and Wayne. And they talked about local meat and the journey from producer to your table, and all of the businesses and farmers and producers and legislation. And it's a complex process for that animal to make it to your table. So really robust discussion. I ended up staying about an hour afterwards just talking to folks about different issues there. So I encourage anyone to attend those First Fridays meetings. They're at 701 Eateries in Fargo, and great discussions always. Later that day, I went to the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County. There was a reception for the new Nordic cuisine exhibit. It really is a fabulous exhibit, and it has a lot of interactive pieces. So even if you have small children, there is lots of fun things to do in that new exhibit there. I encourage you to go check it out. Monday, we had our Law Library Committee meeting. The Law Library has been busy, and the Legal Self-Help Clinic is back up and rolling. It started off a little slow, but as soon as the word got out that they were open back up, they've had people waiting in the hallways. That Legal Self-Help Clinic is open Thursdays from 10 to noon. And they can help you with legal forms and a variety of things. So I know that the court administration often sends people down there if there's something that they can't help with. Legal Self-Help Clinic can, and that is a grant-funded program. Also, yesterday, I had the Moorhead City Planning Commission. We had a presentation on Moorhead's comprehensive plan called Onward Moorhead. And if you are interested in checking that out, Stantec, who is the firm that they hired to put that together, has a great interactive story map available on the city website. The 5 big ideas that have kind of coalesced from all of the community engagement that they've done is to transform downtown Moorhead into the heart of the community, to integrate a mix of mutually supportive land uses and experiences, to connect neighborhoods to parks and trails and provide multimodal access. They noted on this one that every community engagement session that they had, somebody, at least one person, talked about connecting neighborhoods up to parks and the high value that community members saw in those trails and park spaces. So that was a big one. Embracing resilient environmental and equitable solutions, which is planning for infrastructure, building development, energy, climate adaptation while building a greener community. And then the last one is to build and nurture local businesses as key partners to build a prospering community. So again, you can check that out on the Moorhead city website, and it's called Onward Moorhead. We did have 4 public hearings. One was just the request to approve that comprehensive plan update. A request for the city of Moorhead for text amendments to the city code surrounding flood-related definitions, and that was more just a housekeeping item. No major changes there. There was a request of Hampton development relating to the Hampton Place 4th edition. So that was a rezoning from transitional to residential low density, and then also the final plat for that. The final public hearing was a request of the City of Moorhead for actions relating to Macara 5th edition, and that was rezoning from light and heavy industrial to light industrial, and that is in keeping with the current, or for the proposed comp plan. So those all passed unanimously. Yesterday, I also met with Council Member Niesemeyer from the City of Moorhead to get an update from her on our joint powers meeting that we missed, and I will talk to Commissioner Campbell and Steve afterwards about that. I also connected with the Clay County Collaborative. That was another meeting I missed while being at AMC. They are on track with the budget with no unforeseen expenses, and they are busy working on completing annual reports. The coordinator for the Clay County Collaborative said she's really impressed at the work that partners are doing in their communities. And I think that concludes my reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ebinger.
Thank you. I also attended the legislative conference from AMC with the rest of the commission last week. Attended the MRC, the Minnesota Rural Counties meeting, which Commissioner Gross described and covered thoroughly. Wednesday, we had the general session in the morning, but I was very pleased to get out to the state capitol and meet with Senator Ken Eakin and Representative Marquardt. It's really important, I think, and I'm grateful to them for their access and their hospitality to us, but I think it's important they get up to the legislative session, and it's important that local elected officials are able to communicate the real community needs of this county, which is a very unusual one. It's a metro and a rural county. And while we were there, I saw them meet not just with us, but with representatives from Detroit Lakes, from Dilworth, from Moorhead. Both of these representatives were very accessible and made a real effort to find out what's impacting their home community. I was very impressed with their knowledge of the issues that we brought before them. So it was a great meeting. If nothing else had happened, the trip would have been worth it just for the interaction we had with those two gentlemen. The following day, we had the the policy meetings, policy committees. I'm a member of the Public Safety Committee. We had a presentation from Gary Charwood, who's Minnesota Juvenile Justice Advisory Committee Chair. He's also cultural coordinator with the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. And Callie Hargett, who's juvenile justice specialist with Department of Public Safety and Office of Justice Programs. They covered what the Juvenile Justice Committee does and clarified a lot of the issues on that. We then had a really informative presentation from Dakota County Law Enforcement Center with Sheriff Tim Leslie on some of the specialized care and the focuses they're doing within the Dakota County Jail to address the mental health needs and medical needs of their population. During the presentation, Patrick Enderling, who's a commander who runs the jail, made a special point to point out Clay County and the programs we have in our mental health issues here that I discussed earlier with the sheriff. But it really is gratifying to see that that's gotten statewide attention. I then gave a brief update to the staff of the Public Safety Committee regarding the changes that we're looking at here with the joint powers or the mutual aid response between North Dakota and the Clay County law enforcement agencies. Obviously, the lawsuit that was put forward in Ramsey County by the Sheriff's Association and Minnesota Chiefs Association with the one finding as to the constitutionality of denying police officers their Fifth Amendment rights. That finding was enough to assuage the concerns of our counterparts or their counterparts across the river, and hopefully we'll get mutual aid back up and running with the help, as the sheriff indicated, of our county attorney. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ebinger. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. Like all, we attended the Association of Counties meetings that happened we left Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday morning, we did hear from the Office of Management and Budget regarding the status of the state's finances. Had some discussions about the surplus. That afternoon, then we made our trip to the Capitol, and I agree with the comments that have been made about the availability of Senator Eakin and Senator Marquardt to discuss issues important to Clay County. And they always seem to really be very receptive and in the know as to what's going on. I took the opportunity to talk a lot about the score funding issue and how as small of an issue that can be to some, it can, with the proposal that we're talking about and the changes, we could see significant annual increase in dollars that would come to Clay County. So we're talking going from what it currently is to potentially 2 to 3 times, and that's a significant amount of money from this tax that is charged on municipal solid waste. Then on Thursday morning, I attended the Transportation Policy Committee meeting, and I just wanted to, there was a really good you know, a lot of times these policies, you just seem to rehash the same thing every time until you get the funding that you need, and then you move on. But one of the areas that was really new to me this time, and that they're really moving forward in transportation, is the Towards Zero Deaths initiative. And it's quite alarming, so I'm just going to read a couple of statistics that I'd forgotten a pen, so I used my phone. We've had a 37% increase in traffic deaths in Minnesota this last year. It's the 5th largest increase in the United States. 162 deaths last year were result of speeding. That might be going to what Commissioner Gross was talking about, with the need to maybe look at adjusting speeds in areas. And they're talking about two different ways to look at resolving that issue. One are cultural changes, and the other one are system improvements. The cultural changes that have benefited, that they do talk about, they said that the improved seat belts and the DWI issues, I think they're working hard to improve those, but the biggest need is still in that they talk about is the enforcement of speeding. There's a lack of enforcement on speeding, and of course that's the demands too of all these other areas that have caused that. So they're looking at ways to improve the messaging and awareness, and they want to put an emphasis on focusing on youth and their decisions. There are large numbers of these that are young kids that are traveling at high rates of speed. Some of the things that they've talked about that have been positive examples of improvements to the system are the cable medium bearers that we see on some of our interstate systems. We probably notice a lot of it on Highway 10, and we notice on I-94, especially when you go from here to Barnesville. It's been a major area with a lot of traffic accidents where those barriers seem to help. They're talking about rumble strips, roundabouts, and they're talking about creating a traffic safety advisory council, and they want to bring in the schools into the discussion regarding education. So I found that a very interesting discussion moving forward, and there were some things that I was not aware of in that I found really good. Then on Friday, I came back here and we had a Diversion Authority Executive Committee, and we reviewed the 4th draft of the Metro Flood Diversion Authority governance policies that we plan to move forward as we move into more of a construction phase of this and operations. There needs to be some, I shouldn't say changes, but there needs to be more governance policies as it relates to our executive director and staffing that goes on. So we're about ready to make some presentations to the full board on that shortly. Yesterday I attended the construction meeting of the resource recovery facility. That, there were some delays due to cold weather, but the interesting news now is that probably within the next 2 weeks we will start to see the vertical signs of that building going up with the framing starting to take place. So they told us by our next meeting, which would be in 2 weeks, we will start to see those things happening. And the contractor involved with that will probably bring in 6 to 8 people that will be working steadily on that process. And the framing and construction piece of the exterior that they're anticipating will be complete in 6 months. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell. Last week, before we were at the AMC conference, I was able to attend a meeting with Representative Marquardt, the FM West Fargo Chamber, Superintendent Lundick, the president of MSUM and Minnesota Technical College, in regards to a bill for community workforce career academies that Representative Marquardt is putting forward. The bill would earmark $10 million that would go to the Moorhead Career Academy in coordination with all of those other entities to address workforce issues in our community. Certainly, that facility has been really, I think, the first of its kind in a lot of different areas in the state, and would be wonderful if we could secure funding in that amount to help address workforce needs in our community. I also attended the AMC conference with all of you. I want to extend my gratitude for the opportunity to attend that on behalf of Clay County. It's something that is really truly remarkable to have 87 counties in the state all lobbying over legislative priorities with no political party affiliation. It really is important that we just have the conversations for the needs that we're seeing in our counties, and that really is the most important piece of all of it. During our Minnesota Rural County meeting that Commissioner Gross talked about, we really had vital conversations for all of those different issues. Obviously, broadband continues to be a substantial need statewide, and we did talk about considering redirecting $110 million in CPF funding revenues for those grants statewide. That would be something that would really be transformational in all of our different areas. We did talk about the reviewing of the probation formula change. That is something that is also really needed in our different areas. During the general session, had an update from the Office of Management and Budget. As Commissioner Campbell talked about, that surplus is enormous, and kind of going to my concerns that I had talked about earlier, the bonding projects and grant projects that have been granted statewide. It would really be wonderful if some of those surplus dollars could go to back to the local level and help us as we all are putting more skin in the game. It would be really helpful to secure those projects to completion. I also attended County Day at the Capitol. Very important conversations. My gratitude to Senator Eakin for hearing our needs and taking time to meet with us. Also to Representative Marquardt. As we all know, he's announced his retirement, so it was even more special that his neighbor, Commissioner Gross, was able to be at the Capitol with him. And thank you to Paul for all of his work. He really has positively affected our community by his service, and thank him for that. I also attended hearings on the Committee on Environment and Natural Resource Finance. Talked about Senate File 3240 that would secure funding for recreational trail resurfacing, and then Senate File 2930 that talked about drinking water health and preventing gasoline contamination in those water areas, and Senate File 2768 that talked about the salt applicator program establishment. And then after our meetings, I did stay and attend the Committee on Ag and Rural Development Finance Policy presentation from our state FFA officers. Wow, those young people can speak more eloquently than all of us. And so it just continues the importance of investment in those programs that are in all of our different school districts, and really training the leaders of tomorrow. So it was exciting to observe that. I also heard the testimony on Senate File 3585 that talked about the data protection for individuals connecting with farming and ag that are seeking mental and behavioral health assistance. That really goes to talk about the expansion of the Minnesota Farm and Rural Helpline, those suicide prevention phone lines, making sure that individuals reaching out are also protected from HIPAA violations. And then Senate File 3476 in terms of financial assistance, talking about broadband in underserved areas. And then Senator Westrom introduced a bill in terms of rural finance authority and revolving loan accounts for drought relief appropriations. I was really encouraged to see the hearings of all of those different committees that I attended at the Capitol. really in part because those all touch areas that we have heard of serious needs in the course of the last year, 18 months in terms of the people that we serve. So I'm glad to hear those conversations at the Capitol really revolve around the needs that we're seeing locally. The next day, I attended the State AMC Extension Committee meeting. Dean Durgan gave an update on the varied programs within Extension. Also encouraged to hear that they're doing some substantial reaching out and programming implementation around rural stress, area that we've all heard concerns as well. They did do board elections, and thankful and grateful for the opportunity to serve as chair of that state committee again. As a old 4-H'er, that really speaks to my heart, so I appreciate that opportunity. I attended our Environment and Natural Resources Policy Committee that day. We had an update on the state Legacy Finance Committee from Senator Rude, an update on the Minnesota Federal Clean Water Act, Section 404, and then during the AMC closing session, our president gave his update, and we were fortunate to meet the scholarship recipients for the 4-H programs, and also acknowledge several different 4-H clubs on programs that they created over the last year. So congratulations to them. I also then did go back to the Capitol to have meetings with Senator Miller, Housley, Senator Johnson, and Jasinski to discuss needs that we're seeing within our local counties. Yesterday, I attended the construction meeting at the transfer station. They're continuing to go forward with ground warming so that they're able to start backfill and excavation. And as Commissioner Campbell said, we will see a lot of change and growth out there in the coming weeks. Yesterday, I also did have a conversation with our administrator on my desire to have a work group next Tuesday after this board meeting. At AMC, I was able to hear from different counties on how they are addressing the redistricting. We are currently waiting for the city of Moorhead, or all of the cities, excuse me, to solidify and have public hearings on their jurisdiction boundaries. And my hope is that we'll have some more information on that so that we can create a open hearing for the public to understand the jurisdiction boundaries. That will take about 3 to 4 weeks once the cities vote on those. So my hope is that you're able to attend that. I apologize for the shortness of that, but certainly feel that it's important for us to have those discussions. And that's all my reports. Steve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last Tuesday, I attended the virtual meeting with Representative Marquardt and also the additional people that were mentioned in Commissioner Mojo's update with Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Gross. That afternoon, I did talk with Scott Fettig and Klein McCarthy in regards to this board's actions to look at a pre-design for a detox project. Scott did indicate that they had time to do that. In fact, indicated that because of the extensive work that they'd done previously, that they would hope to have a contract to me by today, so we would have something before this board by next Tuesday. That evening, I participated in a county administrator meeting. Focus of that discussion was redistricting ARPA and the legislative session. I also participated in the legislative conference. I appreciate the opportunity to be there with all of you. Again, just one thing I won't cover anything other than I know this board has put a focus on the solid waste tax. Commissioner Campbell discussed that as part of his update. Was notified today they're having their first hearing on the legislative bill in the House Natural Resources on Thursday. It's important because it's the first time they've heard this issue in 4 years. And so a lot of the work that's been done, groundswell here and also with AMC appears to be paying off. On Thursday afternoon when I got back, I did meet with Darren on a series of HR issues. On Friday, participated in a pre-meeting for our MCCJPA meeting on an upcoming administrative purchase request that's going to be coming before MCCJPA on a voluntary property from a citizen. Yesterday, I spoke with Dan Molly on a series of shared issues with the county and the city. I participated in the transfer station owners meeting. And just of note, we've had some discussions due to the close proximity of our county and rural cities meeting to the IGR report. We're going to look at rescheduling that. I thank you for all of you for providing your updated information. We're going to look at April 19th from 4 to 6 at the LEC. We work with Colleen to reach out to our city partners to update them on that information. Also wanted to pass along through Kathy that although this is the first time she hasn't been with us in a number of months, years, she is going to continue to provide you updated information. And Tuesday afternoons is when she gets the best information, and so should be getting something from me later today. With that, I conclude my report.
Thank you. Brian, do you have anything to report? Thank you. Colleen, do you have anything? I would just ask that we add the township meeting to our upcoming meeting schedule. Anything else? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.